So at 12 years old, I was dreaming of having synthesizers, and I had some friends. We had put a band together. I was composing some music for them. And so, but I couldn't afford to have synthesizers. But fortunately, when I turned 15, I started to do some TV commercials. It paid well, so I started buying synthesizers. The year after, when I was 16, I started to offer my services as a programmer. So going from studio to studio. And at the same time, I was working as an assistant in one of the biggest studio. I was really fortunate. I was what we call a studio rat. And so I actually produced music until 1995. And you know, I love music, I love production. Studio for me is probably the best place where I feel that I'm the most happy in life. So I went to film work, and in film work I've learned a great deal, again, about audio technique, and I was working as the audio advisor for the film work and touched the entire audio of a film. Until 1997, there's a huge game developer that came to Montreal, and they asked me to join their company to manage the audio department.
I've been in music most of my life. In university, it was in music teaching. So in theory, I was supposed to become a music teacher. But at 23 years old, with my bachelor at hands, I didn't felt at the moment that I could really bring something to students and people, because there's not a lot of life experience at 23. And that's when Ubisoft arrived in Montreal, opening a studio. And that really kind of caught me and say, oh, this would be nice, because this is a way to do music in a capacity that I knew nothing about. And actually, almost nobody knew how to do games back in the days. And that's also where I met Martin Klein, that is our founder and CEO of Audiokinetic.
So when I joined that major developer, I was really shocked to learn audio was like secondary in the gaming industry.
50.
The importance was for me to make sure that the communicating value of audio was there. So I sat down with them and I said, give us a team, we'll start developing tools, because we need tools. But it's normal when it's a young industry that there's no supplier for tools. So everybody has to build their own tools. And in 2000, I've looked at that and I said, it's not the need only of a company, it's the need of an industry. And so that's why I decided to leave and found Audiokinetic.
And I was even contemplating at the time, like dropping work, go back to university, learn how to become a programmer, because I wanted just this ability to be able to myself integrate stuff and be able to iterate and try elements.
As a creator, my vision was really to give that power to sound designer, to allow them to have all the tools in a pipeline where they can actually build 90% of their design from pre-production to end. So what we did is actually I gathered a team of 7 people from the industry. They were from the film industry, the audio industry, and the gaming industry, and worked together over 2 years to define step by step, looking at the production pipeline, which tool would actually be efficient, not only to increase the efficiency in the process, but raise the quality of it, and a tool that would be fully based on the audio guidelines. After 2 years, we came up with the first version of the plan for WISE. That was one good thing. but you know, you need to build a business on the other side too. So over these past 2 years, on my side, I was working on a business plan. I was working on a sector-based analysis, because at one point we had to finance that company. and probably in the worst time ever, because it was, if people remember, 2001 was the bubble burst of the techno, so nobody wanted to finance a technology company. But we were very, very strong on our plan, and so I actually reached out in 2002 to a fellow called Simon Ashby that actually was working in my team at Ubisoft. And I asked Simon to join and to start working with me on that plan to bring it to another level.
And that's when Martin and I spent a lot of time during the evenings and during the weekends, either at his place or my place, working on Audiokinetic.
So we had a solid plan, and that's actually where we started from. It was interesting because still today there's some stuff in that plan that hasn't been done, or for sure that there's some, the scope sometimes change. As for the first version, because in the first version there was actually some hardware. You want to see that plan? I'll show you.
And it's only in 2003 that we officially opened the office.
So the vision for WISE was really to help the sound team working on games to realize their vision, to have the power to control what happens in the game without relying so much on the programming team and having things taken out of their hands and their control.
For me, these were like, very important times to the foundation of that company. Most importantly, too, by setting up the culture of that company and what we wanted to build as a company, as a new company.
WISE est né d'une frustration, une constatation dans le secteur de comprendre qu'il n'y avait aucun outil audio, que l'audio était à un stade rudimentaire, que ça fait des années qu'on investissait massivement au niveau de l'aspect visuel, mais au niveau de l'audio, pour des raisons technologiques, a été laissé pour compte pendant longtemps. Je me disais, il faut absolument qu'on ait un outil qui est dédié à la création de l'audio dans les jeux et qui répond à des gens de l'audio et non des programmeurs.
When we started working, we were, I think I was the sixth person in the office working there back then, so it was a small office. It was very cozy. We were in old Montreal, in a very old building, nice looking, but very old building. I was a programmer. I wanted to be close to the game industry. I wanted to be working on something fun, and this is what I was looking for, and I definitely found it at Audiokinetic.
Lorsque j'ai joint Audiokinetic, il y avait le volume, le pitch, un bouton play, et puis tout le reste était à faire. La vision que Martin nous avait donnée, c'est de donner le pouvoir au créateur. Et puis ça m'a toujours resté dans la tête, puis ça m'a aidé à prendre des décisions dans mon travail.
From 2004 on, the basic structure of WISE and the product, the core, it's really still the same, and it hasn't shifted much.
At the beginning, I remember when we started, we used to play games every day on lunchtime.
J'ai réalisé assez vite, dans ma première semaine, midi sonne, c'est l'heure du lunch, tout le monde partait le jeu Day of Defeat, puis on allait jouer des jeux en LAN pendant toute l'heure du lunch. Donc j'ai embarqué avec eux. J'ai dit pourquoi pas, j'ai jamais joué à ce jeu-là, mais let's go. Puis deuxième journée de travail, je repars le jeu à l'heure du lunch et je me fais avoir de façon monumentale par un username que je connaissais pas quand j'étais sur le point d'avoir la victoire pour mon équipe, mais que je me suis fait sniper par un personnage que je ne connaissais pas encore, pour finalement apprendre que c'était le CEO, Martin Klein, qui veillait au grain pour nous empêcher de gagner. Et c'est là que j'ai réalisé que il jouait avec nous le midi aussi, donc j'ai tout de suite compris que Audiokinetic, c'était vraiment convivial, familial pour tout le monde, en fait.
Because of certain aspects I have good memories of back then in the old office where we were working late at night. We were younger and it was easier, and we had the opportunity to be playing together. So every night we were playing, first-person shooter games and spending a lot of very enjoyable time playing together. During the daytime, we were referring to us by our avatar name. You feel special when your name at work is your avatar. There was a funny coincidence about my name, which I was since I was a kid. So do you want to know what my avatar name was?
So I was coming from a fairly large software development company. And what attracted me when we started discussing about the role at Audiokinetic was that it was to be working on a new piece of software, building it from the ground up, with a very small and focused development team. And essentially the whole company was designed to build that product.
Donc j'ai commencé ici, en fait c'est Martin Dufour qui est venu me chercher. On avait travaillé ensemble pendant plusieurs années chez Softimage. Et puis quand il a quitté, peu de temps après, peut-être 1 an ou 2 après, il est venu me chercher pour venir travailler ici, il m'a montré le produit, ce que ça faisait, et puis ça m'a intéressé.
It was easier back then. Everything was faster, iteration were in the day. So we were a small company, we were working in an open space, every developer could talk to anyone, anytime. We were working long hours. We had an idea in the morning, it could be implemented in the product, that was the official product we were working on the day after.
And because it was a small team, I got to contribute to a greater portion of the final product, as much the runtime as the Windows tool. That was pretty nice.
So when you're in a small team, everybody has the chance to make an impact. So everybody has to do whatever it takes for the product and the company to be successful. So you have to wear many hats. You know everybody in the company, and there's this sense of purpose.
Of course, we were smaller, we didn't support many platforms, we had no customer to support, so it was way easier to go through every step.
So when I joined, the development of Wise proper was about 6 months in, roughly. So there was some UI. Wise, the authoring environment, was starting to exist, but there was no sound.
You know, barely any documentation. We had some, but it was the beginning of the product, so everything was fast and very, very creative.
The first year was, we were secluded from the world and actually working in our own bubble, building that system. Fortunately, we had two amazing game companies who were able to work with, get their feedback and slowly, but it was not like now today. The community feedback is so important. That's what drives us and every day and we take decision on what we're gonna build for them.
Wise gives this structure and workflow where there's a clear division of concerns between the sound creative team, the technical sound designers, and the programmers that are dealing with integrating sound. We gained our first customer in year 2006. That was Shadowrun by Microsoft.
Au printemps dernier, la compagnie Audiokinetic, une petite compagnie montréalaise, a présenté son premier logiciel en Californie à la Game Developers Conference. Et il y a 1 mois, elle a vendu son logiciel, donc elle s'est trouvé un premier client. Jean Fournier, c'est quoi donc le nom du client?
Le client en question, c'est la petite compagnie qu'on appelle Microsoft.
Oui.
And they shipped it in year 2007. We worked with them to resolve the issues. I went to their studio to participate in the development and the integration and bug fixing. And by 2007, we got to a good enough state to ship, and the game sounded pretty good. When Wise came out, there were a number of tools that were approaching its level of quality and feature set, but very often those were platform-specific tools. And Wise being cross-platform really made it something unique. Most of the games will try to target as many platforms as they can because That's how you reach the broadest audience. So having a tool that offers you consistent results and performance across results, that's super important.
Even at that time, we had most of the core elements of WISE were already in WISE. So in terms of being able to design behaviors and routing your sound to buses and have control over your mix dynamically, in terms of being able to do prototypes and validating some artistic direction with the Soundcaster, for example, where you can play stuff without being connected to a game. We already have the ability to connect to a game and do live edits as you play the game. So all the core element of making WISE easy to use and performant and having a good workflow were there. Something that was missing was the interactive music. That arrived a year later.
I was interested, for example, back then in live performance, for example, and I could see the potential of WISE as being used for live performance of electronic music, for example. And I started working on the interactive music feature. That got me very excited too.
Le but principal, c'était comment est-ce qu'on pourrait donner un chef d'orchestre à tous les joueurs dans le monde. Un chef d'orchestre qui allait pouvoir regarder le joueur jouer, regarder ce qui se passe dans le jeu et puis conduire 50 musiciens pour que la musique suive le jeu. Peut-être aussi un chef d'orchestre qui allait pouvoir conduire un band rock ou un chef d'orchestre qui allait jouer le DJ, qui allait contrôler des appareils électroniques, la musique électronique.
We added this module and tons of work, but there's tons of stuff that's been added to WISE. We have 30-something versions since the first one.
So those years, 2006, 7, 8, were years of a big shift in the game industry. And it so happened that the first few studios to adopt WISE and use it in production and ship titles, those ended up being their last titles before they shut down. It was a time of consolidation and acquisition, and as the game production budgets were exploding, there's this whole tier of titles that simply disappeared. With the emerging dominance of AAA titles with massive production budgets, all those mid-tier studios just couldn't find an audience anymore. So the result of that is that we didn't get any recurring business from the first few adopters. So we had to build the user base of WISE over a much longer period of time.
So, when you play with fire, you burn yourself. And so I did. And unfortunately, in 2007, I had to leave the company for a while. Quite a while, 4 years. And very frustrating, but, it was over and above. So during that time, the only thing you can actually do is taking care of yourself. You cannot focus on other things.
Or the worst challenge that we went through at Audiokinetic, at least me as an employee, was when there was a downsizing of the company. At some point, half of the people left, and we were about 9 or 10 people, almost exclusively developers. But no more QA, no more technical writers. Yeah, that was intense. I think we survived at that point. We held the software with our hands like that, and I think it's just because we were motivated and we believed in that. And we stuck around, and that's the interesting thing. Everybody who worked there at that time, almost everybody, are still here today. So they're the old-timers.
But it comes at times that, you start to feel back, and you start to feel that you're charged again. And I got a call from investors of Audiokinetic who told me that it was not going well at all at Audiokinetic. So, I brought so many people in my own dream, in my own vision, that I couldn't stay there and just let it pass.
after we downsized, Martin Klein came back because he had been away for a couple of years. And he gave us hope, I think, and I started building the company.
And so the people were there. I said, I know a lot of people wants to leave the company, but I said, please give me 6 months. That's all I'm asking. After that, if you don't believe it, you can go on your own way. But I think that, if you give me 6 months, I can put back things together. And fortunately, everybody stayed.
I think that Martin gave us hope because he obviously believed in the company. It was his baby, and it was apparent. And he just, I guess, he transmitted that love to us, or like that confidence that things would go well. And yeah, we took it from there.
I had started in 2006 working to develop, the different territory. Japan is an important one because Japan is one of the birthplace of the video game. So in 2011, when I came back, the first thing that I did is actually I flew to Japan. And I went back every month for 3 years.
I'm big in Japan tonight, big in Japan, be tight, big in Japan, all the eastern sea so blue, big in Japan, alright, in Japan, be by your side.
I became CTO in year 2011, 2012, well, within a year of Martin coming back to Audiokinetic. And it so happened that one day, when I received my new set of business cards, there was this new title. We were going on an important business trip to Japan, going there to reconnect with our users after a couple of years of absence. And Martin felt that I needed the title.
And decided in 2012 to open a subsidiary in Japan.
Japan is where much of this got started. That's where the Nintendo, Sony, Konami, all those established players in the games industry are headquartered. So we really want to be as close to them as we are to the American companies. SNK and Konami were among the first companies to adopt WISE. We were supporting them from the Montreal office, going through time zone, language difference. And we really felt the need to be there, present, to be able to give them the level of support that they were expecting from us.
We were building a huge expertise in interactive audio. So it was probably for us time to invest ourselves into education. So we decided to build an education program, started in 2014, and that's something that is very close to my heart in the company. We're still halfway of the plan. We have a lot of vision on how we're gonna build our educational plan over the years, but I'm really, really happy that we were able to put that in place.
Je viens du milieu universitaire, donc j'ai fait beaucoup de recherches et d'enseignement avant d'arriver chez Audiokinetic. On travaille dans une industrie dans laquelle il y a beaucoup de défis, qui est en pleine mutation, qui change extrêmement vite et qui se diversifie beaucoup. Donc je suis extrêmement fière et contente que Audiokinetic investisse dans la formation non seulement de ses employés, mais de la communauté. Et puis pour faire écho à mes propres processus d'apprentissage, ça me fait plaisir aussi de partager ces connaissances-là et d'aider la communauté à s'adapter à tous ces changements et à relever ces défis-là.
WISE is a complex piece of software. And if you are looking at it for the first time, depending on your background, the first thought in your head might be, this makes perfect sense. Oh my God, a world has exploded before me. But more likely it's, what on earth am I looking at? I don't understand anything. For those users, we've made a ton of educational material, both formal through courses we offer that are free for everyone to use the course material, all the way to blog posts, little white papers, more project-specific or task-specific education. There's also within the community a lot of helping each other out, and we encourage all of our community members to join various groups that we don't run, but we participate in, so that they can ask each other questions and help each other out when they need it.
Fortunately, games has been at the forefront of interactive audio production, and that's something where you see the need for the same kinds of needs in other industries, in location-based entertainment, automotive. The interactive sound designs are becoming more sophisticated and reaching levels of sophistications that we initially saw in games.
Over the years, my role at Audiokinetic evolved. In the first years, it was more about building the foundations for the runtime, the effects, processing, reverberation algorithms, and things like that. Then my role evolved into creating new product for the Soundseed family, embracing procedural audio notably. And my role as it is now is more of a system architect for automotive, adapting the technology to the automotive market requirements.
Around 2013, we were back and established a standard in the industry with WISE. I'd built a good community, so for sure that game is our primary market. It will always be our love. We'll stay there, but at the same time, our vision was bigger than that. For us, it was like, wherever there's interactivity, there's a need for WISE. The vision of that interactivity is growing every day. We decided to look at natural segment where we can actually diversify and bring our solution. And the idea again was one thing, is that we want to take our community and say, okay, you've been doing some very interesting and challenging stuff. Do you want to do something else too at the same time? Like, you know, the audio design for a car or for location-based entertainment, an experience. So that was the idea of bringing them towards different segments at the same time. Our first thing that we did is we started diversifying into automotive, and then basically define again, a solution that will respond to their needs.
In the automotive world, this means that the car manufacturers are empowered to design the audio experience independently, and that's sometimes even more important because the runtime integration is done externally by suppliers, so that's a much more efficient way to proceed for the automotive industry. The vision for automotive today is to completely decouple the engineering from the design standpoint. We want car manufacturers to be able to design systems where users don't feel that the different parts, subsystems in the car are provided from different suppliers. Whether we're talking about safety-related system, infotainment systems, those should all feel as a holistic and unified audio design approach, and that's what we want to empower.
Starting around 2015, we started helping companies doing LBE projects, so location-based entertainment. So by that we mean, for Universal Studio or Disney or those large theme parks.
We have a lot of, they call them dark rides. You're kind of in a theater environment and things are happening around you, all the way to kind of more like, not roller coasters, but things where you're in a moving set of carts on a track through an environment with screens all around you and speakers in the cart and speakers out in space, and it all gets very, very complex.
And we're starting developing other tools to help these experiences and so on. With the advent of VR, for example, that's another example where there's a lot of experience that are, so some are for the living room, but some are in situ, and they're mixing VR and real space and so on, and we're in a lot of those experiences, so that's really cool.
But we have had teams come to us asking, can I use Wise for my play? It's like, for your play? Interesting. Or we actually recently had one, it was a live performance between kind of a DJ and a vocalist, and they used some of our inbuilt features, nothing special that we did for them, but inbuilt features to fire off sound events in different speaker configurations at different times. And we don't know what they're going to do with the software. That's the beauty of a sandbox and a bucket of tools.
After Japan, one thing that was really, really important for me, the development of the gaming in Asia, was China. So we started investing in 2015 in China and make sure that we can slowly build a relationship with the developers there. And finally, after 5 years, established Audiokinetic Shanghai. That was really, really good and really proud today. We have an amazing team there. So from automotive to LBE to gaming and looking at the growth that we were going through, in 2017, it became important for us to make sure that to find a solid partner with which we can actually continue our growth. And so we started defining a list of potential company that we can actually work together and partner. And so our choice stopped on both sides because they said yes in 2019 with SIE Sony.
Audiokinetic being acquired by Sony, I think that scared a lot of people, both internal and external. The whole reason why Wise is so useful to the games industry is the fact that it's this tool that you can use across all the platforms, and you can rely on Audiokinetic to provide the best level of support everywhere you take it. So the fact that a platform vendor acquires Audiokinetic, it scared people that maybe this would change. And this would just destroy Wise overnight. So fortunately, Sony were wise enough to understand that this is something that you have to be very careful about.
Acquisition comes with condition. It was important to stay neutral because we are working with different manufacturers, platform manufacturers, even with a lot of different partners in our ecosystem. So we needed to keep that neutrality and being independent at the same time. Since the commercialization of Wise in 2006, we've covered Europe, mainly from North America. I think that, and interestingly, it's a growing market in Europe, in a lot of different countries. And for us to get closer and closer again to our partners, customers, users in the industry, so we decided to open a new subsidiary based in Hilversum, Netherlands. So really happy about Audiokinetic BV.
So working in the video game industry, I worked with different teams. I worked in user interface, and then at some point I also started working with an audio team and cutscenes and cinematics. Working with the audio team is actually when I started to hear about the Wise software. And for some reason, I thought it was made out of LA or California. I had no idea it was made in Quebec. And later on in my journey, someone from my video game time contacted me and said, hey, I know these guys, they're looking for someone. And he said, it's Audiokinetic. I'm like, Audiokinetic? Yeah, the guys who do Wise. Really? Wise is made in Montreal? awesome.
Looking back today, I have to admit that I was and I'm still very privileged to have the people who has joined Audiokinetic. For me, building that culture was something that is really important, as that the art of that company is the people. I wanted people that are responsible, people that has so much knowledge from different areas that we can actually put together, and not on a competitive way, but on a collaborative way, and that we can actually build that dream that we have, always for the same purpose as, helping creators going a step further.
At the beginning, it was a small company. The company we were competing with were the big Microsoft and PlayStation of the world. So they were making the big tool back then, and we were going to fight against that. So it was a big endeavor, and making our product to be the biggest product in audio in the game industry was not something I expected. Of course, I hoped for that, but it seemed like so far away. I never expected it would be that big.
Quand j'ai joint Audiokinetic, je voyais beaucoup de potentiel pour Wise, mais honnêtement, le succès qu'on a me surprend à tous les jours. On est passé de quelques centaines à plusieurs milliers de clients en l'intérieur de 10 ans. On est maintenant présent dans plusieurs autres industries qu'on ne pouvait même pas imaginer approcher il y a 10 ans.
Au début, je pensais pas vraiment que Wise allait être aussi big qu'il l'est présentement, parce que, dans le fond, je pensais pas qu'il y avait un gros marché dans le domaine des jeux vidéo. Mais finalement, ça a l'air que je me suis beaucoup trompé. Il y avait ça aussi que je savais pas que les outils audio dans le domaine du jeu vidéo étaient aussi primitifs à l'époque. Il y avait quand même un gros besoin auquel je m'attendais pas. Et puis, finalement, Wise a rempli ce besoin-là avec brio.
The second day I was there, I sat with Simon. He showed me a demo, he showed me what it really was, and then I understood what it was all about, and I had a glimpse of its possibilities. And I remember going back home that night. I couldn't sleep. I was so excited by all its potential. In fact, I thought it was such a great idea that I wish I had had that idea myself, and that I had founded the company myself instead of Martin.
Did I felt that Wise would become such an important tool in the industry, is such a success when I founded the company? No, but I knew one thing, and I always told the team, if it's not us, it will be somebody else. Because it was inevitable that needed to exist. I'm really, really happy to be part of that venture. It's been an amazing journey up to now. And like, it's been 2-3 years, I'm telling the people here, we're at the crossroad of a lot of things that will bring so much other things in the future for Wise.
It's always nice to see my son or daughter play a video game and go, I'm in that.
I think the future is to become even greater. Anything audio related, anything data driven, because the sound engine is not a sound engine anymore, it's a data processing engine. We've made it flexible so it could be something else, something greater. So we're open to ideas.
Robotics is a market we just started to explore, and it's very interesting because interactive sound can really give a personality and bring emotion into the equation and basically change the way we interact as humans with service robots. So this is a very interesting application that we're exploring.
Here at Audiokinetic, we're not going to build tools that will automate the work of sound designers. I think we will build tools that will help them, that will keep them at the center and help them express their creativity and allow them to innovate and stay original.
When I joined Audiokinetic, I had in the back of my mind that I was joining the startup that would probably fail and go back to my previous job after a couple of years. But things didn't quite turn out that way. And I mean, the thing just kept growing and growing. And here we are, and we have such an important role in this industry that, well, at least me, I personally feel this responsibility to keep going and to ensure that WISE remains available for all these people. The sound designers, well, they're the whole reason for this company existing.
You know, for us, what's really important is that we continue to do the same thing. We listen to our community, and their feedback is so important, and we take that and we try to actually forge the next feature, the next tools that they need to bring them further in their creation. I would like to take that opportunity to thank you, the community. Thank you all for your amazing support and your loyalty over these years. This has been amazing. Thank you.